boys and girls, the story is called Miss Nelson is Missing. It is by James Marshall. As we're reading, we're going to think about, is this story a narrative, is it informative, or is it an informative narrative? I know when it's a narrative because it has a character, a setting, and a plot. I know it's an informative because it has information about a topic, and I know when it's an informative narrative because it has information about a topic, and it also tells a story with a character, setting, and plot. Miss Nelson is missing. The kids in room 207 were misbehaving again. Spitballs stuck to the ceiling, paper planes whizzed through the air. They were the worst behaved class in the whole school. "Now settle down," said Mrs. Nelson in a sweet voice. But the class would not settle down. They whispered and giggled. They squirmed and made faces. So far, I think the story is a narrative. The reason I think it's a narrative because it has a character. The character seems to be Miss Nelson and also the students in her classroom. The setting where the story takes place is at school in her classroom. And the plot, it seems like the kids are having a hard time listening to Miss Nelson. They were even rude during story hour, and they always refused to do their lessons. "Something will have to be done," said Mrs. Nelson. The next morning, Miss Nelson did not come to school. "Wow," yelled the kids, "now we can really act up." They began to make more spitballs and paper planes. "Today, let's just be terrible," they said. "Not so fast," hissed an unpleasant voice. A woman in an ugly black dress stood before them. "I am your new teacher, Mrs. Viola Swamp." And she rapped the desk with her ruler. "Where is Miss Nelson?" asked the kids. "Never mind that," snapped Mrs. Swamp. "Open those arithmetic books." Mrs. Nelson's kids did as they were told. I still think the story is a narrative because it has a character, and we even have a new character, Mrs. Swamp. It has a setting, they're still at school, and now there seems to be a problem. The kids are not listening to Miss Nelson, and now they have a substitute teacher named Mrs. Swamp, and she doesn't seem very nice. Let's keep reading. They could see that Miss Swamp was a real witch. She meant business. Right away she put them to work, and she loaded them down with homework. "We'll have no story hour today," said Miss Swamp. "Keep your mouth shut," said Mrs. Swamp. "Sit perfectly still," said Mrs. Swamp. "And if you misbehave, you'll be sorry," said Mrs. Swamp. The kids in room 207 never worked so hard. Days went by, and there was no sign of Miss Nelson. The kids missed Miss Nelson. "Maybe we should try to find her," they said. Some of them went to the police. Detective McSmog was assigned to the case. He listened to the story. He scratched his chin. He said, I think Miss Nelson is missing." Detective McSmog would not be much help. Other kids went to Miss Nelson's house. The shades were tightly drawn and no one answered the door. In fact, the only person they did see was the wicked Mrs. Viola Swamp coming up the street. "If she sees us, she'll give us more homework." They got away just in time. "Maybe something terrible happened to Miss Nelson. Maybe she was gobbled up by a shark," said one of the kids. But that didn't seem likely. "Maybe Miss Nelson went to Mars," said another kid. But that didn't seem likely either. "I know," exclaimed one know-it-all. "Maybe Miss Nelson's car was carried off by a swarm of angry butterflies." But that was the least likely of all. The kids in room 207 became very discouraged. It seemed that Miss Nelson was never coming back, and they would be stuck with Mrs. Viola Swamp forever. They heard footsteps in the hall. "Here comes the witch," they whispered. "Hello, children," someone said in a sweet voice. I wonder who it is. It was Miss Nelson! Did you kiss me?" she asked. "We certainly did," cried all the kids. "Where were you?" "That's my little secret," said Miss Nelson. "How about a story hour?" "Oh, yes!" cried the kids. Miss Nelson noticed that during story hour, no one was rude or silly. "What brought about this lovely change?" she asked. "That's our little secret," said the kids. Back home, Miss Nelson took off her coat and hung it in the closet, right next to an ugly black dress. When it was time for bed, she sang a little song. "I'll never tell," she said to herself with a smile. I wonder who that little black ugly dress belonged to. P.S. Detective McSmog is working on a new case. He is now looking for Mrs. Viola Swamp. So now that I'm done with this story, I know that it's a narrative. It has our characters, it has Mrs. Swamp, it has Miss Nelson, it has the students in the class. It also has a setting. The story takes place at school, and it has a plot where Miss Nelson's students are not listening, and then Miss Nelson disappears and Mrs. Swamp comes. And Miss Swamp is so mean to the kids that they really miss Miss Nelson, so they behave perfectly until Miss Nelson comes back, and then they don't know where Miss Swamp went.